Madam President.
Senator from Illinois.
Madam President, in keeping with the remarks of the Republican Senate leader, I'd like to start with a recognition of Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer's contribution to America. On July the 12th, 1994, a Court of Appeals judge named Stephen Breyer appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was the first day of his Supreme Court confirmation hearing. As he began speaking, Judge Breyer laid out his view of the law and its role in maintaining the fabric of American life. And he said, I quote, "I believe the law must work for people." He argued that our nation's vast web of, quote, constitution, statutes, rules, regulations, practices, and procedures has a single basic purpose. That purpose, he said, is to help the many different individuals who make up America from so many different backgrounds and circumstances, with so many different needs and hopes, live together productively, harmoniously, in freedom. In his nearly 3 decades on the Supreme Court, Justice Stephen Breyer has lived by those words. He's helped ensure that the law is a force for good, a force for unity, and a force for freedom and equality. So for me, I have truly mixed feelings as I stand here today and look back on the incredible legacy of Justice Breyer, who announced last week that he would retire at the end of this term. And what a legacy he leads. Born in San Francisco, Stephen Breyer attended Stanford and Harvard Law, and just 3 years after graduating from Harvard, he returned to the school as a professor, a role in which he inspired a generation of jurist public servants. He held a few other occupations as well, served our country as a corporal in the United States Army and in the Army Reserve. He was a clerk for Supreme Court Justice Arthur Goldberg, a member of the Watergate Special Prosecutor's Office, and chief counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee, which I'm honored to chair. From there, he was appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, where he served for nearly 14 years before his confirmation to the United States Supreme Court. And I might add, for the record, his vote on confirmation to the court was 89-7. It was a remarkable showing of strength and support for a man whose politics were very clear, as he'd served with Chairman Ted Kennedy and the Senate Judiciary Committee as his lead counsel for many years. Justice Breyer's record when he came to the Supreme Court was nothing short of awe-inspiring. From voting rights to women's reproductive freedom, from criminal justice to consumer protection, from campaign finance to immigration, Justice Breyer's voice has been powerful, pragmatic, thoughtful, and enduring, whether in the majority or in dissent. Consider, for instance, Justice Breyer's dissenting opinion in the 1995 case, United States versus Lopez. In that case, the court's conservative majority overturned the Gun-Free School Zones Act, finding that the statute exceeded Congress's power under the Commerce Clause, a clear departure from existing standing precedent. In his dissent, Justice Breyer melded sound constitutional interpretation with his signature pragmatism. Citing the facts in the law, he methodically explained how the widespread problems caused by gun violence in and around schools clearly affected and threatened commerce. He concluded, I quote, holding that the particular statute before us fails within the commerce power would not expand the scope of the clause. Rather, it would simply apply pre-existing law to changing economic circumstances. It would recognize that in today's economic world, gun-related violence near the classroom makes a significant difference in our economic as well as our social well-being. That was one of the many opinions that captured Breyer's vision of the law as a force for productivity, for harmony, and for well-being of the American people. Fast forward 20 years. The case was Glossop versus Gross. In that case, they challenged a form of lethal injection as violating the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. The court's conservative majority rejected the challenge. But once again, Justice Stephen Breyer responded with conscience and clarity. With his keen analysis and pragmatic reasoning, he explained the constitutional infirmities of the death penalty. He wrote, and I quote, "Nearly 40 years ago, this court upheld the death penalty under statutes that in the court's view contained safeguards sufficient to ensure the penalty would be applied reliably, not arbitrarily. The circumstances and evidence of the death penalty's application have changed radically since then. Given those changes, I believe that it's now time to reopen the question." Just let me say parenthetically, Madam President, it's interesting for me to note how many Supreme Court justices, late in their term, facing retirement or nearing it, reflected on the death penalty. Justice Blackmun was another. And it says to me that these cases that they decided, once with a facile eye toward consistency, weighed on their consciences. And they came to conclude that the death penalty truly needed to be questioned under our constitutional values. Justice Breyer in that case recognized that in our system of justice, punishment must not only be firm, but fair. During his 28 years on the court, Stephen Breyer has been a stalwart defender of America's constitutional rights. As I mentioned, years before he was confirmed to the Supreme Court, Justice Breyer sat on the Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, located in Boston. Today, on the banks of the Boston Harbor stands a building that reflects his lifetime of service, the John Joseph Moakley United States Courthouse. Let me add, I knew Joe Moakley. He was my colleague and friend in the House. Then Judge Breyer helped design that courthouse, and he still keeps an office there. The building features a curved glass wall stretching across tens of thousands of feet, so passersby can peer into the courthouse during the day. It's designed to provide a clear view into the administration of justice. Engraved on the wall of the building are the names of the workers who had a hand in building it. Alongside the names of bricklayers and carpenters is etched in equal standing the name Stephen Breyer. Those two principles reflected in the building, transparency and equality, have in many ways defined Stephen Breyer's legal philosophy and his contribution to America. He understands our system of justice is stronger when the American people understand how the law works and when the law works for them. Now we must carry that tradition forward. Soon, President Biden will announce his selection for Justice Breyer's successor to the Supreme Court. Big shoes to fill. But I have no doubt that President Biden will select a jurist who parallels Justice Breyer in intellect, ability, and dedication to public service. With his retirement, we have an opportunity to confirm another outstanding justice, one who will indeed champion the freedoms and liberties we hold so dear, one who will also remain faithful to the rule of law, and who will approach her work on the court with the same thoughtful dedication displayed by Justice Breyer. We don't yet know who the nominee will be, but here's what we do know. No matter the nominee, we will undertake a process in the Senate Judiciary Committee that is both fair and timely. This process will afford senators an opportunity to review the nominee's record and question the nominee thoroughly, while at the same time ensuring the nominee is treated respectfully and receives a prompt confirmation vote. We owe that not just to this nominee, but to the American people. Let me close by returning to Justice Breyer's opening statement before the Judiciary Committee, July 12, 1994. America was watching when Justice Breyer said, "You are now considering my appointment to the United States Supreme Court. That court works within a grand tradition that is made meaningful in practice that guarantees a fairness and freedom that the Constitution provides." He said, "I promise you, and I promise the American people, if I'm confirmed to be a member of the court, I will try to be worthy of that great tradition." There is no doubt in my mind, or in the mind of any objective analyst, Stephen Breyer has proven himself worthy of that great tradition. Whoever his successor may be, I'm confident she will do the same. I want to personally thank Justice Breyer as a member of the Senate, but as an American citizen first, for his thoughtfulness, his spirit of collegiality and consensus building, and for always working to advance the Constitution's guarantees of fairness and freedom. Madam President, I ask that the following statement I'm about to make be placed separately in the record.
Without objection.
Madam President, 2 years ago, Mark Frerichs, a veteran of the United States Navy from Illinois, was abducted by the Taliban. 2 years. At the time, Mark was working as a civil engineer. For a decade, he'd been leading construction projects to benefit the people of Afghanistan. But on January 31st, 2020, Mark was invited to a meeting, ostensibly to discuss his next project. When he arrived, he was kidnapped and taken to a stronghold in the mountains of Afghanistan. For 2 agonizing years, Mark's family has prayed for his safe return. They shouldn't be forced to wait a minute longer. Last week, Charlene Kokora, Mark's sister, wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post urging the Biden administration to help finally bring Mark Frerichs home. My colleague, Senator Duckworth, and I have made the same appeal to the President many times over to push every possible lever to secure the safe and urgent release of Mark. It seems the administration is committed to do so, and I thank the President for his recent statement. He said in that statement, the Taliban must immediately release Mark before it can, quote, expect any consideration of its aspirations for legitimacy. We all pray that Mark is still alive and good health. So as the administration and Secretary Blinken continue to hold talks with the Taliban on everything from women's rights to combating starvation and famine, I hope and pray that Mark's release will remain on the forefront of those negotiations. I look forward to continuing to work with the administration on this case. Senator Duckworth and I have worked behind the scenes as best we can, over and over, year after year, month after month, to bring him home. Let's make sure that Mark Frerichs doesn't spend another year in captivity. Let's bring him home to Lombard, Illinois, so he can turn 60 in the loving arms and company of family and friends. Madam President, I yield the floor and suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.